I was debating whether I should do a video on this whole Linus Tech tips and Gamers Nexus drama because, no one likes to waste time with YouTubers bickering at each other, and I was going to leave that on Twitter where drama belongs, but I think it's worth doing a quick video to point out an ongoing ethical problem with the tech niche that I think really harms PC enthusiasts and that I think goes beyond this particular episode with GN. Now, you might be surprised to hear that I actually raised the lack of integrity and lack of reliable testing from LTT 2 years ago, and no one cared. But what you might find even more surprising is who attacked me for raising those concerns back then.
This video is sponsored by Urcdkeys.com. If you buy a retail Windows 10 key, you could spend $100 or more, but if you buy an OEM key from Urcdkeys.com, a Windows 10 Pro key will cost you only $15 when you use the coupon code C25. The keys work globally, and you can even get a free upgrade to Windows 11 from Microsoft. After you've made your purchase, you will find your key in your purchased orders in the Urcdkeys website. Click on Get Keys and copy the key. Then in Windows, click on Start and type Activate, and then click Activation Settings. Then click Change Product Key, paste your key you just purchased, and click Next. Your copy of Windows is now activated. If you want Office 2021 Professional, you can use the same C25 discount code and get it for just $65. Urcdkeys is running a mid-year sale with some cool mechanical keyboards, gaming mice, and even gaming chairs. A big thanks to Urcdkeys.com for sponsoring today's video. Check the links in the description to get your cheap OEM Windows keys today.
So please indulge me as I give some background. I'll keep it short. So in March of 2021, I tweeted the following: "If you see fraud and do not say fraud, you are a fraud," which is a quote from economist Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And I said, in the context of that quote, that Linus Tech Tips is a fraud. And along with that, I gave my reasons for calling LTT a fraud, as in the adjective fraud, not as in the legal accusation of fraudulent, which is why I included the quote from Nassim Taleb. So I said, I have limited resources. When I do hardware reviews, I have to run all of the benchmarks, gather the data, make the graphs, film, edit, write, and come to an informed conclusion that I feel accurately reflects the capabilities and value of the hardware within the current market context. That represents what most enthusiasts can expect to experience if they buy it. And then I added, I realize my reviews are not the best out there, but I'm working hard to make them better. It's a lot of work and very draining when you consider that you have usually around only a week to do all of that I described above and more. And then I said, so can someone explain to me how a 13 million subscriber channel like Linus Tech Tips, with a significant number of people working there, with unbelievable resources compared to a small channel like mine, is using this selection of games to make a recommendation for a GPU in 2021? Shadow of the Tomb Raider from 2018, Red Dead Redemption 2 from 2019, F1 2020, Wolfenstein Youngblood from 2019, Microsoft Flight Simulator from 2020, Forza 4 from 2018, and CSGO from 2012. And then I ended saying, I saw Linus put more effort into the videos he did for the official Intel YouTube channel. The point of this rant was to bring awareness to the fact that Linus Tech Tips were not testing any current games at the time, and a really small selection of games, and therefore not really informing the viewer on the actual performance of the product in question. And this was done repeatedly, and no one said anything, so I ranted. Now, a rant like this from a small YouTube channel like mine on Twitter is of little value, but there had been conversations in the background with other larger creators about LTT's lack of effort in their hardware reviews that affected the perception that audiences got from the product. Some people commented saying I was being harsh in calling LTT a fraud, to which I responded with some more examples of condemnable behavior. Fraud is harsh, man. Really? Let's see. An independent review outlet but has videos on Intel Gaming's official channel promoting Intel products. This is true, you can look it up. Promotes the Titan RTX without disclaiming it was a paid-for ad. And I'll show you in a bit how that happened. Promotes 8K gaming on the 3090 from a script provided by Nvidia one day before embargo for reviews, which is a complete conflict of interests, as we'll see. Reviews the 3060 constantly mentioning the GTX 1060 as requested by Nvidia. This is something that these companies put in reviewers' guides and that a reviewer should ignore. Reviews out-of-date games that don't reflect the hardware's capability but includes RTX games in the competitor's hardware in what they were calling forward-looking workloads. So basically I was saying they were showing a bias towards Nvidia's RTX. Those were just a few of the things that LTT was doing at the time. I mean, the fact that Linus goes on the official Intel YouTube channel to promote Intel CPUs should be alarming enough, given that LTT reviews Intel products and products from their competitors. That is until Intel stopped being their buddies. Now, Linus actually responded to this tweet back then. Here's what he said: "I don't generally reply to stuff like this. You know, peasant YouTubers raising valid concerns is beyond divas time. Fraud, if you bother to look it up, is wrongful or criminal deception for personal gain." Well, let's look up fraud then. It looks like Linus forgot the second part of the definition that he got from Google. A person or thing intended to deceive others, typically by unjustifiably claiming or being credited with accomplishments or qualities. That is the context of me calling LTT and not Linus a fraud. It was deceiving others by presenting content as a review, but not actually doing a review that tested the product accurately, and instead of reliable data, was giving audiences the wrong impression of the product. That is a fraud, as per the definition that Linus himself looked up. You are presenting yourself as a reviewer, which creates expectations in an audience of millions of people that they are getting a review, but then the data in said reviews does not reflect the product's capabilities, and is presented in the same platform where sponsored content for those same companies is being published, in some cases without disclosure that it's sponsored content, as is the case of the Titan RTX sneak peek during our WAN show. So it looks like I got the definition of fraud, as in the adjective, correct. Linus continued: "A disclosed sponsorship is not fraud." Here we can see the RTX 3090 sponsored video, sponsored by Nvidia, released on September 23rd of 2020, which includes phrases like "DLSS has only gotten better since it launched," and a series of bullet points read off of Nvidia's requirements for what is effectively an ad for the 3090, which launched, note, the following day, the 24th of September, with reviews only coming out on the day of release. And on the review, Linus talked about, you've guessed it, DLSS when running games on an 8K monitor, the exact thing he had talked about in the sponsored video the day before. You can be sure that even today, there's close to 0 people in Linus's audience who are concerned about how a 3090 runs PC games at 8K, but they sure would have liked more PC games being added to the review roster, you know, to make an informed purchasing decision. LTT used Minecraft RTX, Wolfenstein Youngblood, CSGO, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's it. Linus made sure to tell viewers during the review that they had a sponsored video showing gaming on an 8K display with the 3090 the day before. So if you ask me, reviewing a GPU showing only 4 PC games in a 15-minute review that promotes DLSS and 8K gaming and guides the user to go watch the sponsored video from the same product the day before is not really a review that has the interest of the audience in mind. If it were, there would be a much larger roster of games and many more GPUs used for comparison, and less of the same marketing bullet points used in the sponsored video of the previous day. It's fraud, as in the adjective fraud, because it's mischaracterizing what should be a review, but falls well short of being that. Then Linus continues with saying they were never paid to do an RTX Titan video, even though they showed it on the WAN show before it was ever announced. And that did make the news websites, meaning it promoted LTT as having a GPU that hadn't yet been announced. A GPU they no doubt kept, by the way. That is undisclosed promotion. And then to make things even more interesting, Linus ended with this threat: "Now look up libel," implying that they would sue me if I were to maintain my views. Classy. You call people out for dubious behavior and you get bullied into shutting up or face a lawsuit. So in my eyes, LTT's behavior back then was indeed like a fraud because it misled consumers. At no point did I mean there was a fraudulent behavior from a legal standpoint. I meant it as misleading, masquerading as something it was not. Now, guess who came to Linus's defense back then? Well, first here's Random Frank P, embodied. Nice. Rather than taking a hard look at LTT's behavior, let's just pick a side and humiliate this small content creator publicly, yeah? Who cares if what he has to say is actually valid? And the community of LTT followers joined in. Damn, good one, Linus. Get him, Linus. Get him, Linus. It's Twitter, I know. This is expected behavior. There were hundreds of these comments. My point here is showing you the response from the community. I don't really care what people said or say when I speak my mind. Linus continued, your whole community is trying to help you out here, man. And this guy said, this guy is trying to steal your viewers by creating drama. This was another common response, that I was doing it for views. But interestingly, one creator in particular thought he'd chime in. Gamers Nexus claimed that since I was promoting CDKey websites in my ads, I didn't have a high ground to be bringing these LTT issues up. Yeah, Steve from Gamers Nexus said that. Firstly, the CDKeys website I work with is an OEM Windows key reseller operating in the US and Hong Kong. If GN has something to accuse them of, then they should come forward with proof or reach out to the company in question. I'll be the first to find another sponsor from the dozens of offers in my inbox, from wallets and rugged mobile phones and a bunch of other stuff. As Steve probably knows, it's impossible to make a living on YouTube without ad spots. I'm making like $100 a month on AdSense, and Patreon money has halved over the last year alone because everyone is feeling the crunch. So until there's solid evidence that the company I work with is doing something illegal, which is what I think Steve snobbishly was implying, I'll keep working with them. OEM key reselling is a legitimate business. You can find them on Amazon, eBay, Newegg, Kingwin, Softkeys, etc. So Steve, unless you have proof of what you are implying, stick to riding white horses. What is interesting about Steve's attack here is that his straw manning was incredibly prophetic. Here he was defending Linus from the things that he is accusing him of now. Bad data in reviews and questionable ethical behavior. The exact things I called LTT out on back in 2021, and that made the whole community turn on me, including Steve, are now the things that Steve himself is concerned with. You know what's ironic? The fact that Steve said I didn't have a high ground, but now he thinks he does. Well, let's take a look at just one example, which by the way I called Steve on back then, of GN's questionable ethical behavior. So here is Steve doing a review of a deep cool cooler on the 21st of July, so just a few weeks ago. And here is a video from GN on the 30th of June, so less than a month before, which is sponsored by Deepcool. How's that for ethical concerns, Steve? This is common behavior in the tech space, to review products from companies that sponsor one's channel. Here is the definition of conflict of interest according to Wikipedia. A conflict of interest is a situation in which a person or organization is involved in multiple interests, financial or otherwise, and serving one interest could involve working against another. A conflict of interest exists if the circumstances are reasonably believed on the basis of past experience and objective evidence to create a risk that a decision may be unduly influenced by other secondary interests, and not on whether a particular individual is actually influenced by secondary interest. A conflict of interest is a set of conditions in which professional judgment concerning a primary interest, such as a patient's welfare or the validity of research, tends to be unduly influenced by a secondary interest, such as financial gain. So by definition, it doesn't matter if Steve is effectively influenced by the sponsorship of Deepcool when he does Deepcool reviews. By legal definition, it's still a conflict of interest. Even if Steve is the Mother Teresa of reviewers and is 100% not influenced by the fact that the companies whose products he reviews pay his salary. That is exactly verbatim what Steve at Gamers Nexus does on a regular basis on his channel. He reviews products from companies that sponsor his channel, like Deepcool, Fantex, and others. And he's now calling out LTT for their questionable ethics. This is a whole new level of hypocrisy. I mean, Steve has had his head shoved up his ass so deep for several years now, thinking he's some sort of white knight of the PC community, here to protect the consumer's interest against the evils of the world. But in reality, he should really get a mirror and take a good look at the complete conflict of interest that's been a part of his business for years now. And this leads us to the main point here. I don't really care about drama. I feel sick just having to do this video, and I'm not here to try and get subscribers or views off of this whole thing. I'm joining the discussion because the real issue with this industry is the same I brought to attention years ago on this channel and back in 2021 when I tweeted that rant about LTT. Tech channels that do reviews cannot continue to accept sponsorships from companies whose products they review. It's immoral. This applies to Linus, GN, Hardware Unboxed, and all the other channels out there that do reviews or present content as a review. It's a conflict of interest. In the case of LTT or LMG, it's been disgraceful that over the years Linus has accepted money from Intel and Nvidia to do sponsored content, and Linus himself has even featured in videos in Intel's own YouTube channel. That's just unacceptable. I won't reveal publicly the justification that Linus gave me for this in an email because it's private conversation, but I think it's clear at this point that his sole interest is money, with little regard to how he gets that money. As I write this, there's a thread going viral on Twitter about a former employee of LTT that has some incredibly damning things to say about the hostile environment at the company. I don't know if they are true. I'd wait for the company to respond, as this is only one side of the story. But man, if the things she's claiming are true, LTT is in some serious trouble, as allegations of sexual misconduct, if I'm understanding her claims correctly, downright insults that I won't repeat as this video would get demonetized, and apparently this employee was asked to manage an OF account for LMG. What? I'll leave a link below to her claims. I'm by no means saying that what she's claiming is true, it's just her testimony, and one shouldn't make judgments without evidence, but it's worth taking a look at what she has to say. At the end of the day, I think the most important thing to add is this. The PC enthusiast creator niche is a reflection of what the audiences reward. That's you guys. When I raised concerns about Linus's behavior, the whole community raged on me. Creators like GN Steve, Greg Salazar, Random Frank P, plus all the others that did so through private messages, you know who you are, and worse still, the viewers. The PC enthusiast community would rather stand behind what is clearly damaging behavior to themselves by planting flags, rather than objectively consider that maybe the concerns raised by a smaller creator are valid. Well, as a result of that reaction, I just stopped caring, and the result was that LTT's reviews got worse and worse, misleading thousands of people with recklessly put together charts and reviews that don't do products justice. Maybe some of you watching were affected by this. It's something to think about. And as for Steve, dude, get your head out of your ass, man. You are not the PC enthusiast community white knight. You are part of the problem. Stop getting sponsorships from companies whose products you review. Then you can ride on your white horse all you want. And that goes for all the other creators out there. Peace.